after Iran's government tried to cover up its role in shooting down a Ukrainian plane last week. Demonstrators tore down pictures of Revolutionary Guard General Qasem Soleimani, killed in a U.S. airstrike earlier this month. Security forces cracked down on the anti-government protest, firing tear gas and allegedly shooting live fire ammunition.
Fox's Garrett Tenney, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo telling Fox's special report the U.S. is concerned for the safety of the protesters. House Democrats huddled with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in the morning to pick impeachment case managers and to prepare to send the articles against the president over to the Senate.
Speaker Pelosi's House was not sending the Senate a thorough investigation. They were just tossing up a jump ball and hoping that the political winds might blow things their way.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says nonetheless the Senate will hold a trial, although they haven't made a final decision whether additional witnesses will be called, as Democrats have demanded. College football has crowned its national champions.
LSU completes their undefeated season, coming away with a victory in the national championship over reigning champ Clemson. Number one in the nation, LSU coming off a stellar campaign, which saw the Tigers not only come away with the SEC championship, but pull off victories against 6 teams while they were ranked in the top 10 this past season, as well as watching quarterback Joe Burrow become the school's first Heisman Trophy winner since 1959. This is LSU's first national championship victory since 2007 and fourth all-time for the Tigers in their third season under head coach Ed Orgeron. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
Final, by the way, LSU 42, Clemson 25. The president and the first lady warmly received during pregame ceremonies. America is listening to Fox News.
Mesco Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel Tumon is now serving your favorite daily specials. Come one, come all. Enjoy your Monday with that savory Carón Pica, your Tuesday with your one and only candied salmon. Stroll by on Wednesday to try that local-style oxtail caro, or Thursday if you're feeling that pan-crisp pork belly served over roasted sweet potato mash. And don't forget that misoyaki black cod with garlic mashed potatoes on Fridays. Busy at work and still want your fix? Call us at 969-2652 for your takeout order.
Yikes, are those Christmas bills coming in already? Those high-interest credit cards at 16, 18, even 24%? Well, we have a New Year's solution for you. A Bank Pacific personal loan with rates as low as 4.65% to pay off those expensive credit cards. It's easy, it's fast, and it's as low as 4.65% APR.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal credit opportunity lender as low as 4.65%. Conditions apply.
Phase 1 of the U.S.-China trade deal is to be signed on Wednesday. Quoting sources who say they've seen it, Reuters reports China has pledged to buy nearly $80 billion of additional manufactured goods from the U.S. over the next 2 years, plus more than $50 billion in additional energy supplies. The Justice Department has ruled the shooting of 3 Americans at the Naval Air Station Pensacola last month was an act of terrorism, but it's put Apple at odds with the government again over privacy and security issues.
When a Saudi military pilot assigned to train with the U.S. Navy in Pensacola killed 3 people, he also shot one of his 2 iPhones. Investigators say both phones are working, but they can't crack passwords.
It is very important for us to know with whom and about what the shooter was communicating before he died.
U.S. Attorney General William Barr says they have a court order, but
so far Apple has not given any substantive assistance.
The FBI adds the gunman's social media showed anti-American military and anti-Israeli sentiment with quotes of the now dead Anwar al-Awlaki. In Miami, Eben Brown, Fox News.
The presidential aspirations of another Democrat candidate have come to an end. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker telling supporters in an online video,
"Today I'm suspending my campaign for president with the same spirit with which it began. It is my faith in us together as a nation, that we share common pain and common problems that can only be solved with a common purpose and a sense of common cause."
Senator Booker was polling below the Democrats' threshold to appear in the next debate. He missed the last one as well, which took its toll on his fundraising efforts. Booker will run for re-election to the Senate this fall. The Trump administration can continue to separate children from adults at the U.S. southern border. Federal judge rejecting a suit from the ACLU to stop the practice. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Live the balanced lifestyle. Take Care Insurance offers proven wellness and fitness programs to encourage individuals and families to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle through preventative care, being active, eating right, relaxing and unwinding, and being socially connected. They have the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs for all ages. Join the movement. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram or visit takecareasia.com to learn more.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his smile team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his smile team.
They make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Do you have anything to add to that, Real Joe Cruz?
I couldn't add anything else, sir. That was even more powerful. The way it was said.
Yeah, well, we strive for excellence here on Tall Tales, of course. All right, so I don't have any tidbits on Paul on the Second Amendment today. So that being the case, we're going to go straight to Zemi Ikotny. So we had a really unusual day on Zemi Ikotny yesterday. You remember Zemi Ikotny is our backwards bilingual play on words that means meet the press. And I used this time to go through the editorials of our two daily newspapers, giving the better of the two, the coveted Blue Star. Yesterday was strange because neither one of them really distinguished themselves with their Monday editorials, but both ran pretty decent editorials on Sunday. So I just kind of pretended that yesterday was Sunday, and I went to the Sunday papers and wound up awarding the Blue Star to the Post. The Daily News editorial was Blue Star quality, but it was, as the saying goes, trumped by the Post editorial. Today, the Daily News is back in the old groove again, running an editorial from the Arizona Republic. But strange, 2 days in a row they run an editorial that is not a Donald Trump basher. And I wonder if maybe somebody sneaks into the editorial boardroom and writes real editorials for them. But this one is titled "The War Powers Vote Just an Empty Gesture," and it's pretty critical of Congress, and it's not hard on President Trump at all. I don't know how this one slipped in. And you would have thought they would have been alert when they saw the name of the guy that wrote the column. His name is Robert Robb. Now, that should have been a danger signal for them if they are part of the international radio listening audience, and they know what a Robert can do to their editorials. Then we have the Post, and the Post is right on today. What are elected officials going to do about deteriorating GMH? And of course, we know the answer. We're going to spend $350,000 to send people to FESPAC to find out who we are. And this, once we find out who we are, our hospital should run like a well-oiled Swiss watch. It'll just be so, it will function so well that people will get sick just so they can go there, you know. I feel fine, but I'm going to try to get sick so I can go to GMH. It's such a great place. So here's the editorial. There hasn't been a shortage of physicians with institutional knowledge of Guam Memorial Hospital who have essentially helped to dissect the issues that continue to plague the government-run GMH. What's been clear is that GMH continues to need a financial bailout from taxpayers, on average about $30 million a year, because there are members of our community who don't have the means to pay their hospital bills and don't have health insurance coverage or don't have adequate insurance coverage. At the end of every year, GMH ends up paying more for the cost of hospital services than the cash that comes in from the patients, health insurance providers, and reimbursements from the federal government. But money alone will not solve GMH's problem. Dr. Samuel Friedman, who was on the card for yesterday, but we didn't get to him, apparently was on the card also at the Post, so we'll let the Post do it instead of putting him on the card. Samuel Friedman, a longtime cancer care doctor in Guam, recently described a systemic problem that has a lot to do with political favoritism, something that money can't fix. Infusing money into Guam Memorial may save an electrical panel or repair a bit of roofing, but it won't help with poor health care. That's the result of the hospital's culture, said Friedman of Guam Cancer Center. Maybe we should call Robert Underwood in there so that the people at Guam Memorial Hospital can study their culture and find out who they are. Yeah, if you don't know who you are, yeah, that's going to be tough. And it's not a specific individual. Some of the people are very dedicated to their work. It's from the top down that nobody really knows what they're doing. And the system put in place perpetuates this, Friedman told the Post. You have incompetent people. Well, you can't say. You might be hurting someone's feelings over at the hospital. You know, when people over at the hospital pick up their paper and read this, they're looking at this and saying, oh, he's talking about people that work here. Oh, how awful. You have incompetent people, and they're incompetent not because any of them will, but because they're not trained to do a job they're given. That's number one, Friedman said. Number two is you have favorites that are given political jobs. These can be doctors, nurses, it doesn't matter. These are not the best people for the job. These people that are available because they're friends of people in power. How could this possibly happen when our governor is a nurse? It just doesn't seem like this could be possibly happening. These people that are available because they're friends of people in power. The result is you have total bedlam. I wonder if that's, no, that's Kellis on the line. I thought maybe it would be Dr. Friedman. Good afternoon, Kellis.
Good afternoon. No, I was just calling to say that one of the problems that we also have is that GMH has a tendency of not collecting.
Uh-huh.
And I think, that's something that really needs to be emphasized, because I was just thinking about when my dad was in the Philippines, they would not release him until we paid his bill.
I never seen any notices in the paper that the hospital has tried to collect any debts. I haven't seen any notices of Marshall sales. I don't know this for a fact, but I kind of hear whispers that, you know, when people go to the hospital, no one expects them to pay, and no one says, you got to pay for this, one way or the other. You have to pay for this. We just...
The only thing that I know for sure is that when it comes to tax refunds, if you've gone to the hospital and you owe money, that's where they'll get you for the tax refund. But other than that, if I don't owe any taxes or if I owe taxes, you know, they're not going to get anything out of me when it comes to tax time.
Yeah.
But I was looking at it when you were talking earlier. I just want to say one of the things that they also forget to do is collect. I just wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah, good point. And all the people that have been in charge of the hospital and talked about the hospital, I haven't heard anyone say, and we are going to institute aggressive collection actions. When people owe us money, we are going to go after them. We're going to hire lawyers. If we got to go to court, we'll go to court, but we're going to collect. Good point, Kellis.
Okay.
Thank you. So it wasn't Dr. Samuel Friedman, it was Kellis, and Kellis makes a very good point. Dr. Friedman's concerns about the current system echo previous statements made by Drs. Jerome Landstrom and James Last. Now, that guy got the last word in until Friedman came along. Now it looks like Friedman got the last word. At least he was last. He wasn't last, but he was last. So Friedman got the last word. You got that, Real Joe Cruz?
I do, sir.
Who got the last word?
Friedman.
But he's not last.
He's not, sir.
No, but he got the last word.
That's right, sir.
It's good that you're keeping track of these things, Real Joe Cruz. All right. Dr. Landstrom, for years, has raised an issue with what he called the pari-pari system that allowed certain doctors to get high-paying contracts and get other forms of payment on top of that, exacerbating the hospital's financial problems. Dr. Last wrote letters to the editor outlining concerns with the diversion of patients, inadequate nurses' salaries, and other conditions at GMH that he said fall squarely in the laps of the governor's appointees, whom he said lacked the knowledge and experience to do their respective jobs. The mental image, these problems, they said, plop. So Lillian Posadas Paris is sitting there minding her own business, and all of a sudden, what's this in my lap? As these problems descend straight into her lap. These insights are worth pondering. Any decent policymaker and elected official should sincerely take this to heart instead of being defensive about the input. So far, though, what Friedman and the other doctors have shared with the public hasn't generated much reaction from elected officials. Well, that's not correct. Kelly Titano Marsh, or whatever her name is, just introduced a bill to recognize Guam's heroes. And we're spending $350,000 to send 100 people to FastPack. No, that's just not so. Elected leaders are very concerned about this. The legislature, I think we're up close to 300 resolutions so far for this legislature. So the elected officials are very concerned. Ignoring this problem will not make it go away. The problem will only fester. Good word when you're dealing with a hospital. The problem will only fester. Maybe it's time we lanced the boil. And healthcare at GMH will continue to deteriorate. And the deterioration of healthcare at GMH puts patients who can only afford to go on GMH and don't have the option to go to the private hospital on the island or travel for health care at a disadvantage. Now, where are all you populists out there in our international radio listening audience? All those folks out there looking for the little guy. all those that want to start, that engage in class warfare whenever you can. This isn't fair. People with money get to go GRMC, and the other folks get stuck with GMH, which is the pits. This isn't fair. So the answer would be to make people go to GMH even if they don't want to, and make GRMC let people come in that can't pay. That would be fair, right, Real Joe Cruz?
I think so, sir.
Yeah.
I don't go to either. I just use Vicks VapoRub for everything.
Does it work?
Yeah, it cures everything.
Obviously, you don't use it on the top of your head.
No, sir.
I think we got a phone call there, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah. The patients who are or will be at the receiving end of this inequity need to know who among government officials were in a position to do something about the problem but did nothing or didn't do enough. Well, that's a list of about 16 people, I'd say. The governor and 15 folks in the legislature would pretty well cover it, I'd say. Okay, today's my day for Leon Guerreros. I've got the other governor on the line. Good afternoon, Ken.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank Senator Marsh Titano for her bill, appreciating those of us in the community who have stood up to better the lives of the citizens of Guam.
That's the first item on my card today, Ken. It's interesting that you should mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to know, I appreciated it, but it's not necessary to pass a bill like that. I mean, a resolution would have been fine. She could have passed a resolution, along with the resolutions congratulating how many hundreds of other people this year for being married, retiring, or even being employed. Or, the other resolutions acknowledging that Department of Education exists, the airport exists, the police department exists. There's just an endless stream of wasted paper, time, and effort coming out of that place. And although I appreciate the gesture, I just don't want to be causing more of it.
Got it.
But in the meantime, getting back to the situation at GMH, as you recall, the only candidate that had a viable plan in the 2018 campaigns was Frank Uggan, who was going to put the hospital in receivership. Because the only time any department or agency of government in Guam has improved is when it had a receiver riding herd over the local officials. Look at GPA, GWA, Department of Corrections, Mental Health, the landfill. Because only when we have that third party who has no local political connections do we have a chance that local politicians or managements will finally do what is right. And right now, Guam Memorial Hospital is the biggest pork barrel ATM machine out there with $150 million cash flow. It's only natural that politicians and their close allies want to get a part of it. And we're seeing that happen all the time. I mean, right now, that mythical $6 million panel that everybody keeps screaming about, the only documentation we have on that is a proposal from a vendor that wants to sell a panel for $6 million. There's no studies, there's no reports, no evaluations. GPA came out and spent a day working on it, and they came up with the conclusion it's fine. It just needed a little cleaning, something that we know Guam Memorial is not good at. So as we're looking at this 2028 campaign season, right now we've got about, I'd say, between 12 and 13 professional politicians in the legislature, and we need to replace them with a minimum of 10 public servants, because that's the only way things will change on this island for the better.
I certainly agree, Ken, and that's why I'm so enthusiastic about Jim Moylan's bill. I see it as our only hope for salvation.
Well, unfortunately, it's not going to see the light of day. Like every other election reform bill that has come before the legislature in the last 5 or 6 years that I've been pushing that concept, they'll just let it sit there in committee, and it won't
Ken,
get a
as
hearing.
long as you keep saying that, you may have some predictive validity. I think it's our job to make sure that it sees the light of day and not give politicians a pass by saying, well, we know that you're not going to do anything, so we're going to quit talking about it.
Well, that's why I'm continuing with the voter initiative program, because if the senators are smart and want to get brownie points come election time, they will at least vote and pass 265. But that goes back to the political parties who don't want anything like that, and the politicians themselves who want a full-time job.
Well, Jim has an uphill fight, because what he's doing, it's kind of like he's trying to engage the other 14 in what amounts to a job suicide pact. So
I know.
So it can happen, but it's a heavy burden for us. And I would refer you back to what Andre referred to as the great salary smash and grab of November 2014. You know, conventional wisdom and traditional Guam politics would have said, oh, yeah, people will really be pissed off for 2 or 3 weeks, but they'll forget. It will all be reelected. But it didn't happen. And it didn't happen because guys like you and Andre and a few others wouldn't let the public forget. So if Jim can't get it through this time, let's hope that it could be the watershed issue for the next election, so that people are measured by their position on a part-time legislature.
It's definitely going to be that, and the fact that we have a simultaneous citizen effort taking place as well. So what we're hoping is that it puts politicians between a rock and a hard place, because they can either vote for and pass Jim's bill, or they could keep it in committee and further divide themselves from the voters, which will make it easier for us to pass our initiatives.
Well, you said you're going to do a voter initiative bill. For a voter initiative, you could just take Jim's bill and attach the right papers to it, and that could be the voter initiative, because the voter initiative mechanism means that if you have the right signatures and you turn it in, it is introduced.
Well, no, if we do it as a voter initiative, it will be considered passed.
Well, you're thinking of an initiative.
Yeah, this is an initiative.
Okay, then don't say voter initiative, because that has a different meaning.
Well,
you're talking about an initiative, as in initiative or referendum.
Yes.
But voter initiative has a different meaning. It's a so-called VIP. If you remember back to the 27th Guam legislature, when the Democrats raised the GRT to 6%, the chamber organized a voter initiative and marched down to the legislature and turned in a bill to roll the GRT back. Not the same thing as an initiative.
Okay, well, what we're following is the process outlined in the Organic Act, which is mirrored over into Guam Code Annotated. But on the Guam Code Annotated, they put a few more hurdles that are not in the Organic Act, like the 10 village meetings, police clearance, court clearance. So we've had the 10 meetings. We are in the process now of writing up the 100-word summaries for the Guam election commissioners to review and approve. And then if they don't review and approve them, then they have to tell us why they didn't approve them. We can make the adjustments. So, but we got an early start, so we'll have plenty of time to get it together, so that when we get our 5,400 signatures, that's all that's going to be necessary to put it on the ballot.
Well, you know, if you were listening yesterday, I roundly criticized Will Castro, because Will Castro said, well, I want to leave it up to the people. And I characterize that as an exercise in cowardice. I would rather see a senator come out and say, I'm not in favor of a part-time legislature, and here are my reasons, than saying, oh, I'd rather see, because that just lets them off the hook.
Yeah.
So it lets them off the hook, because then they're able to say, well, there's really no sense in us spending a lot of time on Bill 265 because there's going to be a voter initiative. So we'll let the people decide. So the tall tales position, Ken, is let's back Jim Moylan's part-time legislature bill, and let's not run the risk of giving the 14 people that are going to oppose it very vehemently, let's not give them an easy way out by saying, well, Kent Leon Guerrero is going to have an initiative, so let's just wait for that.
Well, the way I look at it, it's not either or. It's a simultaneous effort, and senators backing the backing Moylan's bill will be looked on more favorably by the voters than those that don't, and we will make sure that the voters know who they are, like we did in the smash and grab.
Well, you know what?
It's just one of several litmus tests.
Yeah, well, I again, you know what the tall tales position is, and I would hope that every oscillating Richard on the island gets behind Jim's bill, every non-senator gets behind Jim's bill and is persuasive as possible, and that it becomes the seminal issue in the election that's coming up in November, so that people will rise and fall based on their position on the part-time legislature. And if that's the case, those who are on the wrong side of it won't be coming back. And those who are on the right side of it, the campaign on it, please vote for me, because I'm going to vote myself out of a full-time job, will be able to do the right thing. That's the way I see it unfolding, Ken.
Well, the way I see it unfolding is if I don't continue with the initiative, that bill will sit in committee no matter what we say. Like for 4 months now, we've been talking about something in Jonia, and at the end of 4 months, all we've got is 3 different bills introduced by 3 different senators, and finally, we're going to have a hearing on 259 tomorrow, which I will be testifying at, and I hope more people testify at. But the point is, it took them 4 months to get to that point. And
well,
that was
look how hard,
of public.
Look how long it took to roll back the salary smash and grab. It wasn't easy. None of this stuff is easy when you're dealing, and that's the big issue. It's a money issue. So none of this stuff is easy when you're doing that. And there's, you know, my sense is to try to find an easier or faster way out is going to be productive. It's going to be the same process as a salary smash and grab. If it doesn't pass this time around, then it's got to cost senators their seats.
Yeah, but the reason why we still want to move forward with the initiative is it draws a line in the sand. We get the initiative on the ballot, it passes in this election, it becomes effective next election. It took 2 years to roll back the pay raises. Senators introduced 11 or 12 different bills before one passed and only did a partial rollback. You know, so my concern is that the senators will play the legislate game like we're seeing with the Jonia Mayor. We've had 4 months and 3 bills, and it wasn't until things started getting really crazy that they finally put the bill up for a public hearing.
Well, we've beat this. I'm wondering how long the horse can last after he's dead. We've beat this one pretty hard, but I'm going to leave it here, Ken. The tall tales provision is this: that the management at Tall Tales would like to see everyone get out and get behind Jim Moylan's bill, be unmerciful to those who don't support it, and if they play the usual game like they did with the salary rollback, that becomes the issue in the next election, and it could be a career-ending event for those that want to cling on to those jobs. But again, that's it.
No,
Ken.
I agree with that. I agree with that point of view too. I just look at it.
I'm not a doctor, Ken. I'm not a doctor, but I do want to get the last word on this one. Right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for calling, Ken.
Message received.
All right. So there we go. Time for a break.
Cocoa Coffee Company is now available at Circle K. Single origin coffee beans carefully sourced and locally roasted to give you the freshest cup of coffee Guam has to offer. Grab a cup that's brewed every 30 minutes or purchase a bag of the locally roasted whole beans. Flavors now serving: light medium roasted Ethiopia and medium dark roasted Jamaican Blue Mountain. Exclusively available at Circle K. With every Cocoa Coffee Company purchase, a portion of the proceeds will go towards the Cocoa Recovery Program.
The holidays are here and the shopping frenzy begins. Protect yourself with these safe shopping tips. Consider shopping only with retailers you trust, or do some research on other retailers you aren't familiar with before proceeding. Don't save your credit card information on retail websites, and never make payments when using public Wi-Fi. Switch to cellular data or wait until you get to a secure network to make your purchases. These safe holiday banking tips are brought to you by Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, member FDIC.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
And while you're thinking about it, click that arrow on the top of your screen that says share. You know, do your friends a favor. Cut them in on the best afternoon talk show on the air. And we've got a budding poet laureate here, Ishmael Velez, who's right on point, as usual. And this is what he says. Lawyer, judge, senator, marine. What does all this mean? It means that he's done plenty and must be elected in 2020. He's a devil dog and not a mouse, and surely knows how to clean house. Forcing nesters to set their sails. It's the host of Tall Tales. Thank you, Ishmael. Truer words were never spoken. Okay, now I want to go to the first item on the card. And in addition to the first one, I've got filler corn versus them, which I didn't get to yesterday, and Talina versus Moylan, more on the part-time legislature, BJ and Senator Lee versus the mayors and Pedo, Robert Underwood versus us, Marsh and Punzalan, and a cast of thousands. Robert Underwood versus Michael San Nicolas. This is more bickering. We have to have a full-time legislature to get in the necessary amount of bickering. Then I've got the Pope, the very Pope, versus Trump, and Antonio Gramsci versus y'all. Okay, on Marsh versus, this is the first item on the card is Marsh, and I have to create a new sound. You know, when you're reading, you see a parenthesis, you find a parenthetical phrase, and when you do that, you have to say paren or parenthesis or parenthesis. That's so awkward. So I want to invent a sound that I could use in place of that parenthesis. So when you hear me make this sound, you know that I'm reading a parenthesis. Okay, are you ready for that? Here it goes. This is the sound of a parenthesis. You got that, Real Joe Cruz?
I thought you were speaking Yiddish, sir, for a second.
What are you fetching about now, Real Joe Cruz? Yiddish?
I got it, though, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so this is how a parenthesis sounds. So, Real Joe Cruz, can you tell me how a parenthesis sounds?
It sounds like...
Yeah, you got it. Okay. So, this item on the card is Marsh Titano versus Tall Tales, as you were, and Tall Tales versus Injustice. Should I read the title again, this item on the card?
No, sir, I think we got it.
Yeah, all right. So, yeah, so it's Marsh Titano and Tall Tales versus Injustice. And this is Marsh Titano's Bill 268. It's an act to add a new section to Title I relative to recognizing and celebrating Iman Manachu Sia on the second day in September. And legislative findings, Chamorros and the people of Guam. I thought Chamorros are part of the people of Guam. Maybe this is more of the identity struggle that Robert has waxed poetic about. Have a lengthy history of standing up for the people of Guam. During ancestral times up to the present, there have been numerous occasions when Chamorros and other members of our community, this looks like we're kind of getting into our people territory again, doesn't it? Have advocated for the peoples of Guam. Our community has overcome much and continues to progress as a society in the face of past and continuing challenges and injustices. Injustice. Wow. So on the second day of September of each year, that's officially declared as Haanin e Manachu Sia Put I Tautanu, to recognize Chamorros and other members of our community that have advocated for the peoples of Guam. And the governor's supposed to do a proclamation, and the Chamorro Language Commission is supposed to make appropriate arrangements for operations of the day. And you know when this bill will be effective, Real Joe Cruz?
A year from now, sir?
It's going to be effective upon adoption. It's so good that they put that in there. Otherwise, it might not ever become effective. But there's no severability clause. That's strange, because the bill has 3 sections. You'd think it would rate a severability clause. Well, it goes from section 1. Oh, yeah, it does have 3 sections. One section is the title. The second is legislative findings and intent. The third is establishment of Haanin Iman Manachu Sia Put I Tautanu. And then the fourth section is the effective date section. So it's really something that it doesn't have a severability clause. You lost it, Real Joe Cruz. Who was it?
Kellis, sir.
Kellis, okay. Have you opened the Carl line?
Yes, sir. The Tom lines, Joe lines, the Bob lines.
Not the Jimmy lines.
No, Jimmy lines I haven't opened yet.
All right. When you do, you got to open 2, I think.
I do.
Yeah, because sometimes there are 2 Jimmys on the line.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's strange here. There's no severability clause in this bill. Somebody must have made a mistake. But anyhow, the purpose of this is to recognize. The purpose of this bill is to recognize Chamorros and other members of the community who have advocated for the people of Guam and have pushed for improvements and justice. Okay, so we got, okay, yeah, do you open the Jimmy line? Hello, Jimmy.
Howdy. I'm sorry to interrupt your discussion, but I just got some recent news. Guam has a new project.
Uh-huh.
You know artificial intelligence, right?
I know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Guam has their new project is artificial stupidity. AS.
AS.
Artificial stupidity. And the reason why they need that, because they got elected on the natural stupidity of the beloved fellow Guamanian.
I see.
And but, sooner or later, the beloved fellow Guamanian is going to wise up and not reelect them. So if they want to get reelected, they've got to get more stupidity. So they're working on artificial stupidity.
Okay, Jimmy. So
without the election process.
everybody else has got artificial intelligence. Our government's got artificial stupidity, right?
Or on top of the natural stupidity.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Jimmy. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but as usual, you make an interesting point. Thanks for calling.
Sorry about it. Bye.
All right. So we have this bill then to recognize people who have stood up and advocated for the people of Guam for justice. So when I read this, I thought, well, gee, it's really nice of Kelly Taitano to be thinking of a day to recognize tall tales. So I would expect that the Chamorro Language Commission, among other things, is probably going to want to present some sort of a certificate to me and to the real Joe Cruz for standing up for justice for Chamorros and for the people of Guam. I suppose it'd be kind of a reach to suspect that she would make a special recognition of tall tales for coming online and for voicing such vociferous opposition to spending $350,000 to send people to Honolulu when our hospital is literally crashing down around our shoulders. But, you know, if she wants to recognize people, I guess I'm game. I'm kind of grateful that I didn't know she's part of our international radio listening audience, but I guess she must be. So Tall Tales, the real Joe Cruz, me. I think the three doctors, Dr. Friedman and Dr. Landstrom, and who's the last name on that list, real Joe Cruz?
Last.
Yeah, who's the last name on the list?
Last, sir.
Yeah, right. Who is it?
Last.
Yeah, who's last on the list?
Last, sir. His name is Last.
Who?
Last.
Last is last?
The last guy who got the last word.
That was me. So last is last on the list?
Yes, sir.
Why didn't you say so?
Oh, you're right.
Okay, so the three doctors, including Dr. Last. Obviously, Ken belongs on that list. Man, that guy's out there fighting for justice for the people every day. He's got his own little organization. He does a lot of presentations. He does YouTube stuff. He's certainly belonging. He maybe even should come ahead of. Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, you know. But then on the other hand, maybe he should come ahead of me because that would certainly be in accordance with my usual humility, real Joe Cruz. And you know how proud I am of my humility. So yeah, he should be on there. Man, Troy Torres has got to be on there for sure. Fighting for justice, Troy Torres has got to be there. And his assistant, Johnny, has got to be on there. And Andrew Bainham has got to be on there. So, Dr. Kelly Taitano, I hope you've been writing these names down. Should I get in touch with her staff? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible, sir.
Yeah, probably not. I got to go down and go to the public hearing, though, and probably turn in a copy of my biography just to kind of short-circuit the process. And Ken and Andrea and Johnny and Troy and the three doctors, put together your biographies and send it in to the public hearing to save the Chamorro Language Commission a little trouble when it comes to recognizing people on the 2nd of September. I wonder how Dr. Kelly Taitano picked the 2nd of September as the momentous day for this to come down, for this all to happen. Maybe she'll explain that later. Anyhow, that's the first item on our card. Marsh Taitano and Tall Tales versus Injustice. And I should actually amend the title, Tall Tales and half a dozen others The final name on the list should be what? Real Joe Cruz.
Last, sir.
Yeah, of course. The final name on the list should be what?
Mr. Last.
Thank you, Real. You've been so helpful on this, Real Joe Cruz.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. What else have I got on the card here? Okay, political correctness. This is something that I got from the Sunday Post. The Sunday Post was just a gold mine of material for tall tales. A short break coming up here before the halftime show.
Want to grow your business? Start a new venture? Or stay ahead of the competition? You can. With Docomo Pacific Smart Business Solutions tailored to your specific needs and ambitions, you can do it all. Partner with a network with best-in-class network coverage, state-of-the-art communication platforms, and a team dedicated to providing you with premium support. Call 688-2677 to start your journey to success today. Docomo Pacific Business, delivering your future today.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So I put together a pretty good list of names that ought to be recognized on September 2nd. It's possible that I may have omitted one or two. So, Carl, should your name be on that list?
I don't hold a candle to those people. Believe me. Yeah, if those people on that list that you mentioned, and your name should be on that as well. If they
my name was first, Carl, of course, but go on.
Yeah, then I think our situation would really be kind of hopeless. People like the people on that list that you mentioned, and including your show, gives me some hope that these things are happening, but there are people calling them out and holding our public officials accountable, and that gives me some hope. So, I'm very happy for everyone you listed, and thankful that they are all a part of Guam.
Well, isn't it wonderful that Kelly Titano decided to recognize them?
Yeah, I don't think she quite had that list in mind.
You think she was thinking of other people?
I'm pretty sure. And as far as the timing, I mean, call me cynical, but that's pretty close to election time. So,
Well, you make a good point. Maybe she wasn't thinking of folks that go out and fight for justice the way the people on the list did. Maybe she's thinking of something else. And when I look at this, and when I look at her FESPAC bill and all of the things she said, Carl, we talk a lot about transparency and how great it is. But when I look at all of the things that Kelly Titano has done and what she calls herself and the bill she's introduced, I think she's really very transparent. As a matter of fact, I think I can see right through her.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty transparent that she has in mind.
Let me try that again. Yeah. As a matter of fact, Real Joe Cruz, Real R. Carl, when I think of all of the things that Kelly Titano has done and what she calls herself and the causes that she's backed and what she's done with this bill, I think she's really quite transparent. As a matter of fact, I think I can see right through her. Yeah. Very good, Real Joe Cruz. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she has in mind the pretty much what's looked up to as on college campuses across America, and I'm sure on Guam, as social justice warriors. I think that's the people she's mostly interested in honoring. I don't think she's got in mind honoring the people on that list. Those are the boat rockers. I think they're the last people on her list.
Do you think maybe what she's advocating here is a form of identity politics?
Oh, absolutely.
You think it's just one particular ethnic group that she has in mind when she's recognizing? She talks about Chamorros and then other people, when we're talking about the folks on Guam.
I think the other people she has in mind are people that are supportive of of a certain agenda, regardless of their skin color or ethnicity or nationality. If they're on board with the agenda to separate from America, then those are the good people.
I see. So
everyone else is they're off the list.
Yeah, because you know what they are? A lot of them are you ready for this, Carl? A lot of them are settlers.
Exactly.
Yeah, wow.
My wife was and my father was. So
settlers. Oh. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, one of the reasons why I want to call in is because your comments about the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I have a vested interest in that. My family has been there many times. My wife had we've had many positive experiences, but my wife had a really bad experience, and the management swept it under the Tanantang, and I wrote a letter to the general manager at the time and explained that they had mishandled my wife's J-hook leading to her chemo port, and bacteria had entered in, a deadly bacteria, and over the course of weeks it almost killed her. And after several weeks they wrote back and they said, well, we looked into it, we don't think there's anything here. So it's like it never even happened. So there is really a systemic problem there. And I have friends, I have relatives there. I have a niece there. She's very good. There are good people there, but there are systemic problems that just throwing a bunch of money at it isn't going to solve. And I've brought up before what I think is a very good model that I wish we would look more closely at, and I think we tried to at one time. And that is, I had the privilege over 3 years of working with the Israels. They own, the property and the buildings of two major hotels on the island, the Dusitani and the Outrigger. They own the property, they own the building. They would never in a million years think of building from scratch the systems that need to go into those massive structures. They always go and they bid out to major hotel companies. For example, what is it? The Pacific Star. It used to be the
Marriott. You've given me
the Marriott. Yeah.
You've given me an idea, Carl. Let me know what you think here. Do you think we could get Motel 6 to take over our hospital?
We might have to aim a little higher than that, Bob.
Well, actually, that'd be an upgrade, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it probably would be. But like Marriott, I saw a brochure about their company. They have over 2,000 properties around the world. They have all the systems that they've tested over decades. They've got the HR and hiring systems, accounting systems, maintenance systems, inventory systems, collection systems, all these major systems ready to go, tested over decades. And, they've got everything plugged in. So I wish we would look at.
That's what we do with our halftime show. The Real Joe Cruz and I would never think of getting out there and doing the marching ourselves. We've outsourced it, Carl, and it's coming up right now. So thanks for your call. Enjoy the halftime show.
Very good. Thank you.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Moving it forward, I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. House Democrats convened in the morning to restart the stalled impeachment process.
This week, Democrats are expected to announce who they've chosen to serve as impeachment managers for the trial. As for President Trump, his trial strategy remains a mystery. The New York Times reports both White House counsel Pat Cipollone and President Trump's lawyer, Jay Sekulow, will have speaking roles in the trial. Although it remains unclear who else may join the president's defense team or how long a trial may last.
Fox's Mark Meredith in Washington. Missouri Republican Congressman Roy Blunt telling reporters on Monday the GOP does not now have the 51 votes to simply dismiss the articles on arrival. The administration continuing to defend the decision to kill an Iranian general earlier this month and the decision not to inform Congress ahead of time. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo telling Fox's special report with Brett Baer.
Anytime information about something that is so sensitive gets into too many hands, you should know that not only did we limit this information in the legislative branch, we limited it inside the executive branch as well. We made sure that everyone who needed to know knew precisely what they needed. Different people needed different levels of information, but we kept this information in a very tight circle.
Secretary Pompeo again saying that multiple embassies in the Middle East were under an imminent threat from pro-Iranian militias taking their marching orders from the general. President Trump and the First Lady greeted by pro-American chants during pregame ceremonies at college football's national championship game in New Orleans on Monday night. And when it was over,
as they say in the Bayou, laissez la bonne temps rouler. Let the good times roll. LSU sits on the throne of college football.
Louisiana State capping a perfect season with a 42-25 win over Clemson on ESPN to take the national championship. America is listening to Fox News.
Yikes, are those Christmas bills coming in already? Those high-interest credit cards at 16, 18, even 24%? Well, we have a New Year's solution for you. A Bank Pacific personal loan with rates as low as 4.65% to pay off those expensive credit cards. It's easy, it's fast, and it's as low as 4.65% APR.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal credit opportunity lender as low as 4.65%. Conditions apply.
Chili's 2 for $25 is back. Start with an appetizer to share. Then choose 2 entrees like our mouth-watering old-timer with cheeseburger or the Cajun chicken pasta, grilled chicken with penne and Alfredo sauce, and chili spices. Feeling extra? Upgrade to a personal fajita or our famous half-rack ribs. Bring a friend or a date to Chili's and get 2 entrees for $25. Located on the second floor of Tumon Sands Plaza. Chili's. More life happens here.
Congressional bean counters say the federal deficit continues to rise.
The Congressional Budget Office is projecting that the deficit for the current 2020 budget year will hit $1 trillion and will remain over $1 trillion for the next decade. According to data released Monday by the Treasury, the deficit grew nearly 12% last year. Both government spending and revenue set records for the first 3 months of this budget year, but spending has risen at a faster clip than tax collections. The nation has not experienced $1 trillion annual deficit since the 2008 financial crisis. Economists say President Trump's 2017 tax cuts, as well as bipartisan agreements to boost domestic and defense spending, have all contributed to the soaring deficits. In Washington, Sean Lanchel, Fox News.
The Trump administration is not overstepping its authority and separating minor children from adults accompanying them at the U.S. southern border. That ruling from a federal judge in San Diego on Monday. But the American Civil Liberties Union had sued, claiming the administration was splitting families over dubious allegations and minor transgressions. But Judge Dana Sabra ruling it is within the province of the executive branch to secure the nation's border. A priest now on trial in France's largest ever church sex abuse scandal.
Bernard Prénat is charged with sexually assaulting 10 minors in the 80s and 90s. The 74-year-old former priest is also accused in dozens of older allegations, but too much time has passed to prosecute those claims. As the trial began, Prénat telling a court in Lyon, "I have heard the suffering of these people, which I am guilty of causing." He was removed from the priesthood last year when a French cardinal was convicted of covering up Prénat's actions. In London, Simon Owen, Fox News.
A volcano near the capital of the Philippines spewing lava into the sky again early Tuesday, possibly portending a bigger and more dangerous eruption. Tens of thousands of people have fled villages in the area of the volcano. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
GRMC's cardiology department treats most complex heart problems. In our catheterization lab, cardiologists use imaging equipment to treat clogged arteries that can cause heart attacks or heart failure. We perform balloon angioplasty, stenting, and other life-saving cardiac procedures. If you suffer from a heart condition, have your provider refer you to GRMC's cardiology clinic at 645-5500. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so here we are back from that big halftime show, and caller, just hang on for a minute. The real Joe Cruz went out to the football field to run a short errand, but he'll be back to pick up the phone in just a second, so just hang on for a second. Thank you very much. Okay, so while I'm waiting for that caller, I'm going to start talking a little bit about filler corn versus them. And this starts one day. This starts in Richmond, Virginia. The House side of the capital of Virginia just changed its pronoun preference from he/him to she/her. All right, let's get back here. Oh, it's our Carl. Wow, he just got off the Ferris wheel and he wants to get right back on? You know, I think there's a danger of altitude sickness if a guy rides the Ferris wheel twice without some interval between rides. Do you know anything about that, real Joe Cruz?
No, I don't, sir.
Yeah. How are you feeling, Carl?
Oh, all right, Bob. Yeah, that first ride was way too much fun, so I'm right back again.
Okay.
It's addictive.
All right.
I just wanted to add on one point, and I kind of ran out of time because I called too close to the top of the hour. Yeah, regarding that, you know, hiring a professional hospital management company to come in, you know, with all their pre-built systems already made and tested, you know, over who knows how long, decades or whatever. The advantage is that we can write terms into the contract to make sure that they reach certain benchmarks, or there can be consequences. The ultimate consequence being they lose the contract. So these are very motivating. Whereas right now, when things go wrong, you know, as with all government monopolies, although now it's not a pure monopoly because GRMC is in the market. But government normally, they just, you know, it's in the nature of government and monopolies, they just shrug their shoulders, you know. I mean, even with GRMC competing, there's not really a huge amount of pressure because you just go back to the legislature and, you know, ask for more funding or, you know, whatever. So it's a different story with a management company. There's a tremendous amount of pressure to perform.
You know, Carl, way back in the 70s, we hired a company called Hyatt. Not the same company as Hyatt Hotels, but Hyatt to come out here and manage our hospital.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Uh-huh. And it didn't work very well. And the reason was that whenever they attempted to manage, they would be stepping on someone's toes. And the steppee would go to his favorite politician, and ultimately they drove Hyatt out of here. And I'm afraid that the same thing might happen if we, you know, there are probably half dozen hospital management companies in the U.S. I would wonder if the same thing might not happen there, that, you know, when I'm going to use a metaphor here, when that, in order to clean up the hospital, we're going to have to slay some sacred cows. And as the new management company comes in to slay the sacred cows, the cows are not going to just fade softly into the night. They're going to be just like the 14 people in the legislature with Jim Moylan's bill. They're going to fight it tooth and nail. So I hear what you're saying, and I see it as a way of really improving the hospital. I'm wondering, though, if it might not be necessary to sell the hospital to one of these companies, let them come in, make some investments, operate the hospital, regulate them, let the Public Utilities Commission regulate them like they regulate utilities, and try to insulate them as much as we could from the downside risk of slaying a sacred cow.
Yeah, you make a very valid point, and I hadn't really thought about that, but that is very true. I wasn't aware that we'd actually already done that one time, and that was the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, with all this talk about, you know, how, you know, with the FESPAC, you know, and how important the cultural issue is, and we're doing this for the Chamorros.
We're doing it to find out who we are, according to Robert Under. Yeah.
Well, there are Chamorros dying because of the systemic problems at the hospital over many years, and I've heard some of the stories, some real horror stories, you know, of just terrible things that have happened, and just no change, you know. Just
back in 1977, a patient at the hospital had to go to the toilet, and as he was sitting on the throne, he reached for something and grabbed an electric wire and was electrocuted, killed, sitting on a toilet in the hospital. You know, if you can imagine that. Now, that hasn't happened since 1977, at least not that we know of, but I don't see a massive improvement. In 1975, the church built Medical Center of the Marianas, and this was supposed to be a state-of-the-art modern hospital. It was an answer to the deficiencies of Guam Memorial. So Medical Center of the Marianas stood up, but they had a hard time, and Guam Memorial competed with them, went head-to-head with them. But, of course, when a private company goes head-to-head with a company that gets government subsidies, it's not really a fair fight. So Guam, as you were Medical Center of the Marianas, ultimately went bankrupt, and the government of Guam took over the building, and that's where Guam Memorial is now. So what was state-of-the-art in 1975 is now, I don't know how could we describe it? Something less than state-of-the-art, I guess.
Yeah, you brought up many good points and things that I wasn't aware of. I didn't know the history. That's one reason why I always listen to Tall Tales, because you've got such a storehouse of about Guam's history. So that is very interesting. Yeah, so maybe the only real solution might be just outright sell it and let the hospitals battle it out. You know,
it's just a matter of the way the world works. People take better care of their own property than they do of somebody else's. And when it comes to Guam Memorial, it isn't the folks that are working there. It's not their property right now. If the whole thing falls apart, which it has, you know, it doesn't come out of their pockets. But if you got a private company that's got big bucks invested in real property, you can bet dollars to donuts that they're going to take care of it. So that's my 2 cents worth on the subject, Carl.
The only way I see that happening, Bob, is if we go to a part-time legislature and people get elected. I think we need to move away from elections being popularity contests and enticing people who tend to be more interested in becoming career bureaucrats and toward people with records of achievement.
I guess, Carl, I could go along with the idea of people not being elected based on their popularity, since I've already been elected a couple of times.
Yeah, very, very true. Sorry about that. My dog just got excited. But anyway, yeah, the only way I see real reform coming to Gov Guam, including GMH, which is life and death agency, is if that happens, if we go to a part-time legislature and widen the field to more people who have a extensive record of achievement and getting a lot of things done in the private sector or the government sector. And I just have no hope if that doesn't happen. I really don't.
If the
legislature have Groundhog Day all over again.
If the legislature doesn't do that and clean itself up, then it won't have the moral high ground. I'm mixing metaphors there. It won't have the moral high ground to engage in the slaying of the sacred cows that have to be put to sleep if we're ever going to make any progress. So that's absolutely essential. I don't know if you heard my chat with Ken, but it's up to every one of us to get behind Moylan's part-time legislature bill and do whatever we can to let the 14 that are probably going to be against it know that it could be a career-ending event for them. Of course, if they don't, they wouldn't care because they don't want to be in a part-time legislature anyhow, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I like Ken's initiative. The only thing I'm concerned about, based on your comments, is is only having one election, because as you've mentioned, the downside of that is it would be basically placing the choosing of candidates from each party in the hands of the party bosses, and I think that would just be kind of disastrous.
Would be if we did away with the primary, it'd be a huge step backwards, and I've explained that before. We would go back to choosing, even though we have a Clean Air Act, the smoke-filled room would be recreated, and that's where the candidates would be chosen.
Yeah, yeah. Other than that, I like his thoughts on going back to part-time, even going to 21, as you mentioned. That's really not a problem if we have a part-time legislature. Anyway, Bob, thank you for allowing me to come back in for a second ride on the Ferris wheel. It's always a lot of fun.
I know that Ferris wheel is so attractive, it's hard to resist, so you're okay, Carl.
It's addictive, let me tell you.
See you later.
All right, bye.
So let's see, I've got another Joe on the line here. This is not you. This is another Joe. Good afternoon, another Joe.
Goodbye. Before years now, it's difficult to imagine. Years now, I was debating with my friend. This is before they were paying so much attention to the plebiscite, before the Dave Davis issue.
Say again?
Before we even imagined there'd be a Dave Davis issue. I had a friend, and he wanted to call attention back to the political status, and I was like, I didn't understand what the point is, because there's either you have a state, or it's status quo, or you're independent. I mean, there's no other way, because reality, there's probably not enough people. There's probably not enough people to have a state, and I like being a U.S. citizen.
Well,
so I mean, so anyway, I said, well, would you let people have a say, a voice? Yeah, but we're probably gonna be against each other, and so anyway, long story short, I said, look, okay, here's probably what's gonna happen. Let's see, if we have independence, right? Here's what's gonna happen. Okay, we're gonna go broke, right? And then it's gonna become very clear. It's gonna become very clear that we don't have money. And then what's gonna happen is the corruption thing is gonna be solved very quickly, right? Because we don't have money. And then all these the low cost housing, that's gonna be one of the first things to go, because if we don't have money, why are we gonna be putting people in housing? And it's not nice. You want to be one of the people that causes people to be homeless because we don't have money to put them in low cost housing, government housing. And then what is it? There's a bunch of issues that are going to be made clear really quickly. And on top of that, I like being a U.S. citizen, but just say for the sake of being fair, right, that you want it to be a vote, and if it was majority rules, we have to go where the majority went. So then, yeah, let's say that we had independence, right? That's what we're looking at. We're looking at that people going homeless, and a lot of businesses are not going to make it, and the government? There's they're not going to be able to go to Kasam. So I kind of wanted to get your impression of the idea, because look at this compact impact thing, right? Like, more or less,
get my idea about what I'm having a little difficult following here. Another Joe.
I know. I think what I'm trying to get at is going to be the same outcome. It's all about money. Either we have the money or we don't. If we're not U.S. citizens, we can't go to handouts for handouts to Sam, because we're not U.S. citizens. And then whether or not they give us money is their prerogative. And so so the option is either you have the money or you don't. Those are the only real clear options, whatever the option is.
Well, let me jump in here for a second, another Joe. Yes. There's this myth that we have a commission on decolonization. It's not. And there's this myth about self-determination. It's not. What we have is a very active group of people who are engaged in identity politics, who want Guam to separate from the United States.
Well,
statehood, and I've explained this more than once. Statehood is a theoretical possibility, but nothing more for an island that is 160,000 people. Free association doesn't exist. We can't get there. We can't get there from here. So that leaves only independence. And that's where that commission is coming from, is pushing for separation from the United States. So when I'm getting back to what you're talking about, money, let's say that group were successful, and let's say that Guam separates from the United States, becomes a completely independent country. How independent is Guam going to be when it has a debt of about $2 billion, which is where we are now?
And the thing is that they don't know how to go and collect the money, because if they did, they'd find a way to collect the money from this compact impact thing. It's the most obvious, the most current and present issue to deal with. It's like what the customer in front of you is the one you deal with. So this is, if it was the Vietnam issue, it's the one you deal with. How many refugees can we take care of? How many, what can we pay for?
Well, an independent Guam wouldn't have to take care of any.
And look at the airport. How many tourists can we help for how long? It's budgeting and where do you get the money from? And can we collect money? Look, we can't even collect money from these people who are dropping their citizens off at our doorstep. How are we going to collect money in the future if we're independent? Where are the sources of money going to come from?
I agree.
So that's what. Sorry, go ahead.
I agree, another Joe, and I've kind of echoed the same thing more than once here on Tall Tales. So thanks for re-emphasizing.
Hey, thanks for your time. I'll come up, and I'll just keep listening. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, another Joe. Yeah, independence when you're as far in the hole as we are now. Of course, the separatist would say, well, the federal government has to pay that money because we're going to be independent. We're not going to have anything to do with them anymore. And if they want to come here, they're going to have to pay rent for the basis. And, if we ever get hungry, we'll just reach up to the sky and take some of that pie out of the sky. Okay. Back to Fillercorn versus them. One day after taking control of Virginia House of Delegates, Democrats, led by the state's first female speaker. Boy, are we ahead of them. Real Joe Cruz, of our members of the legislature, 10 of them are women.
That's true, sir.
Yeah. 10 of them are women. Yeah. The Democrats, led by the state's first female speaker, pushed through a set of rules governing how the chamber will operate. The rules package presented Thursday was a day late and highly anticipated, given the Democrats have used it to ban guns from the House chamber or to stack committees in their favor. As it turned out, the rules took only an incremental step toward a potential guns ban, and they afforded Republicans proportional representation on all but one committee, as was the case when the GOP was in charge. But that's not what Majority Leader Carniel Herring led with as she unveiled the written rules on the floor. Here it comes, the momentous actions of the Virginia legislature. First, she began, the pronouns are in the feminine gender. That's true for the rules applying to the Speaker, Eileen Fillercorn, such as she will immediately call the House to order, and for those applicable to the House clerk, another post assumed for the first time Wednesday by a woman, she will keep a journal of the proceedings of the House. Yet it's also true for rules applying to the Sergeant-at-Arms, a job held by a man, Jay Pearson. She will attend to the display of the mace during the sessions of the House and direct all persons not entitled to privileges of the floor of the House to the gallery. And the rules aimed at every delegate in the House, where women occupy a record 29 seats, but still remain greatly outnumbered in a body of 100. Here's another rule. No member will absent herself from the service of the House unless she has leave granted by the Speaker or is sick or otherwise unable to attend. We have updated the language of the House to reflect a commonwealth that is open and welcoming to everyone, Fillercorn said later. For hundreds of years, the assumption was that male pronouns would cover everyone. Another step forward for Virginia. I guess they could be really proud of themselves. Yeah, so I think they've missed the boat here. This Ms. Fillercorn, of course, with a name like that, that's a worse name than Kelly Titano. Fillercorn. How would you like to go through life with a name like Fillercorn?
I wouldn't, sir.
No. So Fillercorn has seen to it that who used to be what we called a woman once upon a time, has changed all the rules so that everyone is referred to as she. But she's so, that's so 20th century. If you want to change your rules, you don't change your pronouns to she. You know what to change them to, don't you, Real Joe Cruz?
They, sir.
Of course. Yeah. How backward can they be down there in Virginia? She. Aye. It just makes you wonder sometimes what the world is coming to.
It's hard to believe, but Security Title is 20 years old. Reaching this milestone is a clear testament to the hard work of our employees, who are as passionate about our work as we are about our community. We are most grateful for the realtors, lenders, attorneys, investors, and the buyers and sellers we serve. They are the reason our doors have been open for 20 years. Security Title looks back with gratitude for the past 20 years and looks forward with optimism to the next 20. Thank you, Guam.
You're trying to get ahead at work. You've been asking for a side project where you can show your stuff, and now you've got one. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, some important things to think about, including, perhaps, the most important of all.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mescla. Try their featured special for January. San Diego-styled fish tacos, beer-battered tender fish fillets, stuffed in corn tortillas and topped with cilantro lime sour cream sauce, shredded cabbage, and salsa fresca. Served with spicy roasted chili salsa for only $12.95. Try it today. Available in Nagana and in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
Okay, so the seventh inning stretch. Here we are, center field bleachers, Chicago, Wrigley Field. That means I've just got 2 innings left of Tall Tales here. And I was just peeking at Facebook here. I found another limerick by our limerist, and I couldn't find it, but I'll find it before the next break. And in the meantime, James Howard pipes up with something that's really very, very radical. And I don't think he would have dared have come forward with with these remarks in January, right after the last election. This is what James Howard said: "Women or men equally successful and dangerous. It's the character that counts. How are you prepared to serve the people with honor or with strings pulled by a master?" Isn't that pretty radical, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That, that we wouldn't make a big thing out of woman or man, that we would look for character and political independence. Wow. That sure doesn't, that won't fit with identity. I don't know that you'd be very welcome in the Democratic Party caucus with, they probably look at you as a heretic, James Howard, with ideas like women or men equally successful and dangerous. It's the character that counts. I agree with you 100%. You're absolutely correct. But, after what was it, until sometime in March, we couldn't get over this. Yeah, we got 10 women in the legislature, and we got a female governor and a female chief justice. Whoa. Let's hear it for the women. Oh, we're really sitting pretty now. We got the women in charge. Okay, I got to talk a little bit about what I talked about yesterday, Nelson versus Moylan. Nelson, part-time senators may be biased in favor of their full-time businesses. And then she goes in there and talks about Alexander Hamilton and Hamilton's statement that we have to pay the president, and makes an argument based on whether the president should be paid, an argument that I readily agree with. You have to pay your president, but you don't have to pay senators. And going back to the foundation of the country, the congressmen in the wintertime, when there wasn't any farming to do, because we didn't have full-time congressmen back in those days. But let's just talk about, you know, let me pull this quote out of here. Hamilton explained that a sitting president who couldn't depend on a regular salary might be tempted to sell policy to the highest bidder. Therefore, we must first discuss the conflicts of interest legislators must face and how we can address those conflicts to ensure the people's will and their needs are safeguarded above all else, Nelson said. We must discuss conflicts of interest of legislatures. Senator Nelson, how about conflicts of interest of governors? What about if you have a governor who is a major shareholder in a bank where all of the government's money is deposited, and if that person had been president and chamber as you were chairman of the board until recently, and now the president of the bank is her son? How does this work with your abhorrence of conflicts of interest? Just curious. Thought you might be able to help us with that one. Did I have a phone call, Real Joe Cruz?
I guess it dropped.
Who was it?
Joe.
Another Joe or another Joe?
It was a Joe. A Joe.
A Joe. Okay, we got a lot of Joes around here. So, A Joe, if you want to call back, I'd really like to talk to you. Are we having troubles with our phones again, Real Joe Cruz?
No.
Okay.
But phone lines, they occasionally drop sometimes, especially when people call on cell phones.
All right. Okay, next on the card here is BJ, Senator Lee, versus the mayors and Senator P. Terlahi. The P stands for pedo. And I have a letter here to Senator Terlahi from Senator, she calls herself Regine Bisco Lee, because there's an accent over the first E. Regine Bisco Lee. That's kind of an unusual name, but it's not quite as bad as Kelly Titano. So here we are. And Lee is writing to Terlahi about non-appropriated funds reimbursement at the mayor of Agate's office. I believe the legislature must exercise its oversight authority to receive sworn testimony on a concerning situation involving the Agate mayor's office. Over the course of 2019, an individual has received $46,138.11 in reimbursements through non-appropriated funds paid to the Agate mayor's office. More worrying, an individual of the same name is listed as employed at this office in fiscal 2019 for the fourth quarter staffing pattern. Now, you can tell Lee is right on. She's right there. She ought to be in the Virginia legislature because she's talking about this staffer, and she says the next sentence is their salary at the time was $28,595.20. Now, just to make sure we know what we're talking about so we don't get into one of those deals like I had so much trouble explaining to the Real Joe Cruz about the engagement ring controversy. When Lee says their salary at the time was about $28,000, she's not talking about Siamese twins. Oh, excuse me, politically incorrect. She's not talking about Siamese twins or what we should refer to actually as conjoined twins. She's talking about one person, but she wants us to know that she's woke. So when she's talking about a single person, she assumes that their pronoun is there. Like Jimmy's guy driving in the carpool lane by himself who told the cop that their pronoun was there. Anyhow, their salary was $28,595.20, far below the funds they reportedly spent. During the same period, another individual with the same name as the Agate Mayor's office employee received more than $10,000 in reimbursements. Unfortunately, the legally mandated reports which disclose these reimbursements include little to no details that may justify the frequency or amounts of these payments. But even when descriptions for reimbursements were provided, the reasons stated raised red flags, including, quote, gas for official, quote, official battery, quote, official tire repair, quote, Mango Festival supplies, PI, and, quote, purchase of 2 Agate coaches airfare tickets. Many times for these 2 individuals, unrelated reimbursements are lumped into a single check. No explanation for a payment was given far too often for my comfort. Senator Chalahi, the people of Guam must trust that non-appropriated funds received by public servants will not be used as a slush fund. Good choice of words. Slush fund, who do these guys think they are? The Election Commission? To corruptly enrich government employees. I have full faith as a former mayor yourself, you understand better than most the fiduciary responsibility born from accepting direct donations and revenue from corporate sponsors and village residents. Fiduciary responsibility. Fiduciary responsibility means that you take care of the money better than you would take care of your own money. A high standard of care. Although I have not seen or received evidence to prove this is the case in Agate, the appearance of this impropriety is enough justification in my mind to hold an oversight hearing on the matter. This will give an opportunity for the mayor, his staff, and even perhaps the village's municipal planning council to answer under oath, including 1, what are the specific justifications for the reimbursements? 2, whether the legally required processes to reimburse personnel or private expenses with non-appropriated funds were followed. 3, if the 2 aforementioned individuals receiving reimbursements are or were indeed employees of the Agate Mayor's office. 4, why these 2 individuals have spent a combined $56,000 to pay for expenses related to the activities of the mayor's office. 6, why these expenditures are not being handled through the existing procurement or purchase order processes. Other members of the 35th Guam Legislature should have the opportunity to ask their own questions and find out facts about this situation. In the name of exploring statutory solutions to close loopholes, increase transparency, and prevent further corruption. In addition, my office is committed to researching the use of non-appropriated funds by other mayoral offices to determine if other similarly concerned incidents of rampant reimbursement are occurring elsewhere. A similar letter has been written to Attorney General Levan Camacho, asking his office to determine if any actions were taken, expenditures or otherwise, in violation of law or rules and regulations. I have also requested an audit be conducted by the Office of Public Accountability in order to reach a credible determination of compliance or noncompliance and identify critical areas of risk in order to improve the handling of non-appropriate funds and safeguard non-appropriated funds from corruption. Senator Terlahi, according to the Mayor's Council Manual of Standard Operating Procedures on the use of non-appropriated funds, reimbursing personal funds used to cover purchases with non-appropriated funds is highly discouraged. It is unfortunate that in this instance, these reimbursements seem to be normal or even preferred method of procuring goods and services for the Agate Mayor's office. With this in mind, I hope for a positive response to this requested oversight hearing. My office can also furnish any documents or research that will help move this effort forward expeditiously. So Senator Lee, has broken one of the taboos. As I've remarked on many occasions, the theory is that, back to sacred cows again, that mayors are sacred cows because they control so many votes in their villages. So if you want to be reelected to your full-time job, don't pick on the mayors. You got to get along with the mayors because they could cause your non-reelection. But Lee is really going for it here. And she did copy in the Attorney General, and she copied in BJ with the same thing. And I have an article here, Office of Public Accountability. This is BJ announces audits for the coming year. And well, guess what? The validity of disbursement of non-appropriated funds, Mayor's Council, and as you were. So one of the audit subjects is going to be the validity of disbursement of non-appropriated funds and the Mayor's Council. Well, good for you, BJ, because if any place needs auditing, it's the mayors and the rump legislature called the Mayor's Council. Mayors are supposed to be local officials. They're supposed to be helping out and servicing the villages. This whole thing with the Agate Mayor, it certainly, if it isn't corruption, it has what a lawyer would refer to as the badges of corruption. That is that when you look at the books, they don't look right. Nothing looks right. So then the name of the mayor here is Kevin Suswiko, who distinguished himself at the Port Authority, if you remember that. Then he ran for mayor and was elected mayor. And he has his response. He said, he comes back and says, Mayor Kevin Suswiko responded to that his office has followed the rules for reimbursement, which audits can confirm. He's also inviting the senator and her staff to take a look at the documents that support the reimbursements. In response to her comments that the report his office submits is lacking in details, he said they used to submit more details reports, but they changed that per a request. You're only receiving a snapshot because that's what the legislature and the Mayor's Council and the Governor's Office asked for. I'd kind of like to see the footnotes on that one and the bibliography. They said put it on a summarized spreadsheet with a letter, and that should be acceptable unless we have questions. This just doesn't sound right to me, especially in light of the items that Lee quoted in her letter to Terlahi. Suswiko goes on to say, Suswiko said, if the senator has questions, he welcomes a call from her. Well, how big of him? How big of him? I reached out to her office personally to get the documents she needs, he added. I have not received a call from Senator Lee. The only thing I receive now from the media, and not even to my office email, is a question that why do we do the things that we do? We welcome the good senator to come down to our office and take a look for herself. The files are there. Checks are there. The justifications are there. We're not hiding anything. Okay, I'm going to come back here after the call to the post at Churchill Downs.
Hi, welcome to this ad for new Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. How do you want it?
Cheer Squad. Woo! Go Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. Woo! Give me a ham and jack slider.
Ham and jack slider.
Give me an Italian spice slider.
Italian spice slider.
What's that spell?
It doesn't really spell anything.
New Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. Go sliders!
Subway, make it what you want.
Most talk shows only give you selected opinions from one side of the political aisle.
You know, I don't like what you're doing. It's bad. Everything is bad. It's all bad, 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 bad.
We do it a bit differently on The Ray Gibson Show. We bring you the newsmakers from the left, the right, and the middle in order to give you the full view of the issues that affect all of us here on Guam. Right or left, we bring you to the middle of the conversation on The Ray Gibson Show, weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on Guam's only news talk superstation, 93.3 The Point.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So there we were. So here we are. There we were at Churchill Downs. Watched the horses shoot into the starting gate, the call to the post, etc. That means that we're in the home stretch at Tall Tales. I've been peeking at Facebook posts here. We've got a gentleman named Michael King. Michael King, half a day, Bob, tuning in from Germany. Well, you know, we do have our international radio listening audience. Pierre used to tune in from France, and here's Michael from Germany. And I have a feeling that probably almost all of the major countries in Europe have Tall Tales, part of the Tall Tales posse located within. And then I also found something else here from Andrew, the poet laureate of Tall Tales. And here's what Andrew says. I think I may have to retire. The new post truly inspires, using words with great care, with panache and with flair. Just have fun. That's all we require. The poet laureate. So we've got dueling poets on Tall Tales now. Ishmael Velez and Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Competition brings out the best in everyone, especially poets. Okay, so I was just finishing up here with the mayor of Agate. Kevin, this is not a good year for mayors. You know, now they've decided they don't want to do the carnival, which is the best decision that I think they've made since, as far back as I can remember. But we have the mayor of Jonia, who is attempting to carry out one of his duties from a jail cell. And we have Kevin Susweek, who has this incredibly warped idea of how a government functions. Government functions are based on paper. And of course, in the 21st century, oftentimes digitalization of records. But the records have to speak for themselves. And your record spoke, as quoted in an official piece of correspondence from Senator Lee, your record spoke very clearly. And what your record says is, this doesn't look right, doesn't look right at all. It's too much money. It looks like this guy worked for you. And as Lee used the word slush fund, that's the word that jumps out and grabs you by the eyeballs when you read the facts that she cited in her letter. So if you're going to be a public official, you need to take some care to make sure that your records don't look like you're running a slush fund. And the record should be kept in such a manner that if tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock the auditor shows up, you're ready. Now to say, well, you're welcome to come down here and take a look, and no, that's not the way it works. The burden is not on her. The burden's on you, Kevin Suswiko, to keep the kind of records that are self-explanatory. It's not, oh yeah, well, we just did this spreadsheet, but we got this and we got that. You come on down, you can take a look. Not good government. And it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do the office of mayor any good. And Lee said, based on what she saw, she's going to take a look at the other mayors, as is BJ. So if you're not keeping good, clear records that speak for themselves out there in mayoral land, then you ought to start. You ought to start yesterday. And don't get too wound up. Don't get too preoccupied with issuing keys to the mailbox. That would be the word from Jesse Bloss out there in Jonia. Don't concentrate too much on those mailboxes out behind your office, or you may be looking for some rather hard times. Let's see, I've got about 4 more minutes to go, and I wanted to go into more in depth to the whole FESPAC thing, and I've just got a couple of things that I want to throw out now. I've made a lot of this idea that the cultural dances that we do are about 30 years old. And I'll just kind of touch on that for a moment. I've got a lot of really interesting materials here, a letter from Paul Zerzan. But Judy Flores, if you know who Judy Flores is, I think she's now Dr. Judy Flores. Si apaka na Palawan lo gostungo finut tomorrow calling tomorrow Palawan anay Klitzkie finut tomorrow. She grew up in Enalahan, so she had the real advantage of being exposed to a language other than her mother tongue when she was young. Because as my understanding of language acquisition is that up until you're 11 or 12, you're kind of like a sponge. So, if you throw a kid out you take a kid to Tijuana and let him hang out there for a couple months. If he's 10 years old, he'll come back and he can habla español. But when after you get past that, it becomes a totally different task to learn a language. So Judy reminisces, and she says, the rise of minority and indigenous rights reached our shores in the 1970s, and the renaissance of Chamorro pride flourished. The most visible manifestations of cultural pride were expressed in the arts. Recreated ancient Chamorro dance began in the 1980s. Recreated. And she says, it took us years to reconnect a meaningful relationship with our Pacific brothers and sisters. But FESPAC was the main inspiration and conduit that reunited us with our Pacific heritage. And then she goes on to say, how different would our tourism marketing be today if not for this renaissance? Today, our dances, songs, chants, and visual arts connect us back to our ancient heritage before colonization. Well, I knew I wouldn't have time to do this justice, but I will pick this up tomorrow. We're not done with FESPAC. There's a lot more to be said about FESPAC. In the meantime, it's been really great sharing the afternoon with you. Glad you could join us for another educational, inspirational, exciting episode of Tall Tales. We'll see you tomorrow.